Hello and welcome back to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel, your source for all things Everton. My name is Thomas, back on the channel today with an extra time match reaction to a very disappointing 3-2 away loss to relegation rivals Burnley. Joined today by Connor Williams. We're going to be dissecting the game a bit, as well as talking about, I don't know, our predictions going forward for the season and maybe beyond. But Connor, going into the match last night, let's start maybe with the lineup, your feelings before the match. Were you particularly confident going into it?
Somewhat. I think it's. I think he was sort of. There's not much he could do, obviously, because of Alan's suspension and Michael Keane's suspension. I think the only one that maybe I've thought about is Fabian Delph, but bearing in mind, Fabian Delph, no offence to him, seems to have legs that have the structure of Weetabix. I don't know if it was the brightest idea to chuck him in straight away. Anyway, I would have thought he'd have come on later on though, when we were, a goal up. But the lineup was as good as you're probably going to get under the current situation with the injuries and such.
Yeah, I think it was good to see Branthwaite thrown in there, but to be honest, I'd rather he was kind of integrated a bit more easily throughout the season, because we all saw what he could do last season. We know he's got a lot of potential. Hasn't really featured that much this year, but to kind of throw him in such a massive match, I mean, the lad did fine enough, to be fair to him. It wasn't the goals weren't his mistakes, and we will get onto those individual mistakes. But yeah, I mean, it was good to see him. But I agree. I mean, the lineup was almost picks itself, really. Disappointing. Dele Alli still not breaking into the first 11. Who knows what's going to happen with him going forwards, because it's that doesn't seem to have worked out at all. But we'll see if he can have an impact going forwards. But I wasn't particularly confident going at the game. I think others were kind of thinking, it's got to click at some point. It's Burnley. Come on, let's, we can actually do this. But I mean, as we saw, we shoot ourselves in the foot time and time again. And at the end of the day, we did score 2 penalties. We didn't score, from 2 chances we created, which we'll get onto as well. But we'll start off with their goal. It's another set piece conceded. It seemed like, when Paul Clement came in, maybe set pieces had improved slightly. That's gone out the window once again. But 10 minutes in, it was poor, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was poor, but it was no surprise, was it? Like you said, and we'll get onto the individual mistakes, but it seems to be the same thing time after time that costs us. It's either individual mistakes, or it's set pieces, or maybe you could argue it's a bit of bad luck, referee decisions, injuries. Thinking more the Newcastle game, the injuries that we got there. But they seem to be the 3 things that either cost us games: either just bad luck with injuries and the ref, individual mistakes, or set pieces. And the set pieces this year as a whole, not just under Lampard but Benitez as well, I haven't seen us this bad since Marco Silva's era, where we were getting kicked out from out the cup from Millwall, and just every set piece was like a penalty or a free kick just outside the area. It's mental.
Yeah, no, it was annoying to see, especially hadn't scored in 400 minutes. The lad that did score, he hadn't scored for them before. Youngster. I mean, it was always bound to happen, but maybe not from a side-footed effort from a corner at the back post. I mean, that is absolutely woeful. But look, the reaction to that was fairly decent, I thought. We didn't fold straight away. We bounced straight back. We get the 2 penalties in the first half. Broke the record for, I think it was an away side hasn't been given or hasn't scored 2 penalties in the first half in the Premier League before. Great. Maybe we've broken a record there, but that doesn't help us at the end of the day. We won't go into the penalties too much. I mean, they were penalties. The second one was more debatable than the rest, but look, Aaron Lennon's kind of gone for his ankle there. He's always going to go down under that, and a penalty's a penalty. Good composure shown by Richarlison. I thought, to be honest, when he stepped up, we haven't had the best luck with penalty takers. Obviously, Dom kind of seemed like he was taking the role, but injured for the rest of the season. It seems like Richarlison's now. Fair enough, scores both of them, go in 2-1 up at half-time. What were you expecting in the second half then? All of a sudden, I mean, I was slightly feeling more confident, even despite the fact that I wasn't at the start.
Yeah, I was feeling more like, I don't know if, I can't say at half-time I thought, oh yeah, that's it, with games done and dusted, because it's Everton, and, I don't think anybody in the fan base is that confident, certainly this year. But I thought, good basis. We'd have to really, I thought we weren't going to lose. I thought maybe the worry would be an equaliser. I didn't think we'd mess it up that badly that we'd end up losing it. I expected him, like I said before, to tighten up a bit, maybe bring on Fabian Delph. Also, Holgate was, skirting on a yellow. I'm actually impressed he didn't get sent off. Fair play to him for, not being rash and going into and doing something silly. But I thought he'd bring on Fabian Delph, and I know it's not a very Lampard-esque style, but shut up shop a little bit, try and beat Burnley at their own game, be a bit more rigid and a lot harder to break down.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the table graphic that flashed up, all of a sudden we were 7 points ahead of Burnley, only a couple behind Leeds. We still had games in hand. It was all looking very nice for a moment, wasn't it? Obviously, the fact is we've now ended the match 1 point ahead of Burnley. They, of course, play Norwich this weekend. We have Manchester United. I know which I'd rather be playing, especially at this point as well. Look, it's dire, really. This was a match that we had to go on and win. We didn't second half. To be honest, I didn't. It felt like it was coming towards the end of the game that they might get a goal, but it felt like every time they'd get to that byline, they were pulling it back and scored. It was, almost an identical goal for Jay Rodriguez and Cornet. But I don't know how you reacted to the goals, really, but it's just individual mistakes. The first one, of course, Calvert-Lewin gets turned by Tarkowski in his own half. He's then played through. John Joe Kenny's in no man's land, pulls back. Jay Rodriguez scores. The Cornet goal, Godfrey, I'm not really sure what he's doing there. He's clearly panicked. Ball's come to him and he's fluffed his line again. But as I mentioned, yeah, individual errors again. How did you react to the goals anyway? I
couldn't quite believe. Obviously, Godfrey. I don't want to, individual mistake. I don't want to lash him too much because he's not as susceptible. I'm going to say that it's probably the nicest way as the others are to it. So I was a bit like, it's out of character slightly for him. I'm not too sure what John Joe Kenny was doing that high up the field, and I'm not too sure how Calvert-Lewin, apologies for that, how Calvert-Lewin gets turned by a centre-back either. It was so Everton, and like as soon as he turned him and I saw John Joe Kenny, I was like, why are you that far up the field? It was sort of written in the stars as soon as he turned Calvert-Lewin, though. Yeah,
no, it was very frustrating, and both goals were just basics, really. We kind of knew when Lampard came in. We discussed the fact that he does want to play on the front foot. John Joe Kenny took that very, very literally, clearly. And maybe some of his defensive setup has been questioned. It was questioned at Derby. It was again at Chelsea. And of course, we can't account for individual errors. There's no way a manager can really stop that other than giving his player confidence. But with John Joe Kenny kind of being sent on his holidays there, that's not what you want to see, really. I mean, he should be third choice right back at the club. Unfortunately, Patterson and Coleman both injured, and he's come in and, he hasn't done fantastically, but I'm not really sure what we expected. It's never really worked out for him at Everton. I'm sure many of us thought in 2022, John Joe Kenny would not be our starting right back under Frank Lampard as manager, definitely. But look, that does now leave us at a point where we are right in it now. Well, I mean, we've always been right in it and we have been for weeks, but this is now getting extremely serious. I've got the table to my left, just going to look down at this anyway. Watford 19th, 22 points, 30 games played. Ourselves and Burnley, 29 games played. 1 point separates us. They're on 24. We are on 25. I know which fixture list I'd rather be having as well, looking forward. We've got United, Leicester, of course, then the Merseyside derby, Chelsea, Leicester again. The Watford match after that, obviously going to be huge. Brentford, potential points there, then Palace and Arsenal. Look, long gone are the days where you need 40 points to stay up, and that hasn't been the case for years. I mean, apart from the time that West Ham went down with 42 points, everyone said they were too good to go down, weren't they? We've heard that plenty of times this season. But you look at that fixture list, Connor. I'd say, well, what do we need? 3 more wins, maybe try and get 34 points, 35 points. I think that might just be enough to stay up. But looking at that, where are we getting those points from now?
I don't know. I don't know. I think the optimism in me makes me want to say that I think we could get a draw against United. In all honesty, just because they do what the Everton team are doing and banking on Goodison Park's atmosphere, just dragging us through it. Chelsea are very hit and miss. I mean, coming off 2 defeat, obviously Real Madrid's not that big of a shock, but the Brentford result was. So kinks in their armour, whether I think we're enough to even start poking at it is a different story. I mean, a couple of the teams, again, Leicester as well, have been hit and miss. Leicester at home, a little bit more confident. The Merseyside, I'm just writing off. Just that's not happening. There's no chance we're winning that this year. I mean, the realistic one, though, if you said which ones do you think we genuinely, I'd feel more confident is Watford and Brentford. Watford away, though, I'm not confident for a bit. Brentford, I'm quite confident we should beat them at home, but that's the third game towards the end. We really don't want to be leaving it that late. Palace have already beat us this season and thrashed us in a cup. Arsenal, again, away at the Emirates, and you don't really want to be going into the last game of the season with that type of pressure. In an ideal world, we need to pick up the points needed very quickly, because the longer this goes on and the more of a pressure cooker it is, the more I don't rate the team's chances. I think Sean Dyche summed it up, didn't he, when he said at half-time, he said, I don't think these have got it in it to go on and win the game. I would say that is the biggest problem about this whole relegation battle, and probably what he's going to tell the team now afterwards. He's probably going to go, I don't think they've got it in it to win the relegation battle either. So we need to get the points as quickly as we can, wherever they come from, because I don't trust the players to handle the pressure.
No, and how I looked at last night, really, I think if we'd won last night, which it looked very nice. I mentioned that table graphic again when it flashed up for a minute. It did feel delightful. What I feel like we've done is if we'd won last night, well, that puts us up to 28, 7 points clear of Burnley. I think then we give ourselves the opportunity to kind of see this off before the end of the season. But now I can see this going right to the last day, annoyingly. And if it does, I'd imagine Arsenal will still be in that top four fight. I can see that going all the way. So that'll be fascinating. I'm really not confident about that. Look, Leicester at home, I think you've got to pick up point. I think we've got to pick up a win there, personally, purely because they have been hit and miss. They're still in the Europa Conference, so they will be playing those fixtures. It is, we will have a rearranged game against it. I think this is the rearranged game, actually, the home match, isn't it? So hopefully we can use that to our advantage. Maybe squeeze a point against United. I'm like you, forget the Merseyside derby. I'd forget Chelsea as well, to be honest. Even though their season's kind of done, maybe you can kind of take advantage of that. Watford and Brentford are the two matches that I think will define our season. Well, not define our season, it'll pretty much decide the season, I think, because I'm not sure how much of a result we get against Palace, but Brentford at home, we have to win that. They'll be done by that point. Hopefully they won't be too bothered either. And Watford, of course, is the big one. So, as I mentioned, I think it's probably 3 wins and a draw keeps us up. Do we have the matches to do that? I'd say we do. I mean, the fixture looks difficult, but luckily for us, this is a very poor relegation battle. This isn't a battle, where teams keep winning and teams keep picking up points, but you never know what's going to happen either. And I was saying this yesterday, look, now we are in a relegation battle. Anything can happen, really. I mean, you get the most bizarre results when these things, come up against you. And all of a sudden, I mean, we could go out this weekend. Burnley, they might start feeling it against Norwich, lose to them. If we pick up a point against United, heads are picked up, their heads are dropped. It's going to be a roller coaster for the rest of the season. Let's be honest. I think it's very, very hard to predict now. I said before the Burnley match, if we win, we stay up. Now, I have absolutely no idea. Anyway, do you think we can do it?
Yeah, I'm gonna say yeah, just because I don't think we're done. I don't think we're done till we're done. I'm one of those, like, we're not done till we're done. Like you said, Norwich could very easily, beat Burnley, and then the fight's back on. And we've still got that point, separation. We are level on games with them now, so we don't have the games in hand on them that we, had prayed of. And we've said for weeks that Burnley's games in hand were really dangerous ones to look at, and we were hoping Brentford were catchable, because we had a couple on them. But I mean, I think Brentford sum it up, though. About 2 weeks ago, I was like, oh, they'll get sucked in. They play horrible football. They look like they're out of ideas. And then Christian Eriksen's come alive. They've gone on to beat Chelsea. They've got these points. Like you said, anything can happen. Burnley aren't necessarily going to win every game. They might, they might lose a lot. We might pick up points. But in terms of, are we down? We're down when the points are mathematically say we're down, which will probably, like you said, be the end of the season. Until then, I think we've always got a chance. And I'd rather stick with the optimism of we've maybe got a chance than think that's it, we've done. And then, because I might as well just not watch the rest of the season and sort of hibernate for the summer if that was the case.
Yeah, I see no point in kind of just saying we're done, it's over. It isn't. This is going to be an absolute scrap. The other teams will be feeling it as well. It's not like we're the only team feeling this. Watford and Burnley will both want to stay up. Of course, we are kind of the ones who are expected to stay up, but they'll be feeling it as much as we are. This is, of course, kind of discounting Norwich and Leeds. Norwich are down, let's be honest. Leeds, I don't think they're really catchable at this point anyway, but it's not over till it's over, as you mentioned, and as I've repeated many, many times over the past few weeks. It feels like I keep saying that to myself and saying that to you lot, but it's a horrible position to be in. It's not where I expected to be, especially after Lampard's debut. Look, we hammered Brentford. All of a sudden, I thought, hang on, are they going to slip into it? We're going to pick ourselves up. No, that's a hard no to that one. But as I mentioned, you look at those games, like back-to-back home games against Brentford and Palace. Their seasons will be done at that point. Can we take advantage of that? There's so many factors to play in. It's not over. We are still not in the relegation zone. Somehow it feels astonishing, but we're still not there. It might be the case that, I don't know, we slip into it and don't get back out with like 2 games to go. That'll be horrible. But you know what? Let's see. It's impossible to make predictions. You've got to take it week by week, game by game. Anyway, let's see. Have you got any kind of rounding thoughts off on that one?
Just one, when obviously up until this season, we would, regularly finish 10th sort of thing. And I used to have
the lofty heights of mid-table.
Yeah, the big high heights of 10th. And I'd have mates go, oh, don't you find it boring that you finish, sort of mates who support bigger clubs going, don't you find it boring that you finish, mid-table every year? And they'd even tease and go, oh, don't you want to be down the bottom with excitement? I can tell you categorically now, there is no fun being down this bottom. How fans like Norwich do it every 2 seasons, I don't know. It is horrible. We've just got to pray that Lampard pulls through, the team pull through, and then rebuild next season, which I feel like we've been saying for the last 5 years. Every year it's all right, it's a project. We'll rebuild next season. The stadium's coming, but hopefully we stay up in the league and we see some sort of actual action instead of I feel like it's all talk, no substance with Everton for the last 5 years. So I'm hoping this is a quite extreme kick up the backside and quite extreme warning of, if you don't sort yourselves out, this is where you're going to end up.
Yeah,
that's to the whole board as well. Yeah, not just the players, to the whole club.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I haven't seen many of them. But the shouts where it's like, oh, maybe I've had fans kind of say to me, oh, if you go down the Championship, you'll win a lot of games, you'll have a clear out. No, absolutely not. Bin that off straight away. We don't want to go down. That will be catastrophic financially, mentally, morally, in every single way. We should not go down the Championship. Anyway,
no.
Yeah. Anyway, that brings us to the end. Try not to be too negative because there's not really much point. We've just got to kind of get to the end of the season, as I mentioned, take it game by game, see what we end up with, see how many points. I mean, we could start with like 32 points. This is not going to be a particularly high quality relegation battle at the end of the day. So let us see. Anyway, Connor, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you all very much for watching. Let us know your thoughts down below. Finally, just one more time, it's not over till it's over. It's going to go down the wire. It's going to go down the last day, but let us see. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Join us next time on the Toffee Blues. Goodbye.